Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Veg Grower Podcast. My name's Richard and each week I share with you my journey of growing my own food in my allotment and my kitchen garden. I personally believe that everybody should be growing some of their own food and I'm here to encourage just that. Whether you've got an allotment, a garden, a balcony or just a few pots on the windowsill, we can do it. Now coming up this week, caterpillars are causing chaos on the brassicas down on the allotment. I've also finally planted out my leeks. I've had a good harvest of courgettes and potatoes and some kitchen garden maintenance. We've also got a stir-fried summer bean recipe and a chat about storing soft fruit. So without further ado, let's head down to the allotment and get started. Well, here I am down on the allotment and it is the middle of July. Now, one of the things that we really should keep a close eye on during the summer months is pests. And I have taken my eye off the ball a little bit and it's probably came back to bite me in the bottom. Now, I was tending to my broccoli plants this week and as I was tending to them, I realised that I had loads of fat caterpillars over them. And this is a bit of a concern because the caterpillars are of course eating at the leaves. Now these caterpillars are from the cabbage white butterfly, which are a known pest for brassica plants, hence the name cabbage white. We see them flying all over the place during the summer, so it's not unusual to see them at all. But the trouble is they lay eggs on our brassicas, those eggs hatch into caterpillars and they eat away at the leaves, destroying the plants, which is a little annoying because it's just another problem that we've got this year that we have to deal with. Now this isn't a one-off thing, we get cabbage white butterflies every year. The thing is, it's how we deal with them that makes it tricky. The easiest way is to net our plants. That way the cabbage white butterfly themselves can't lay any eggs. The trouble I have with that is I find that the netting creates a barrier between me and the plants, so I don't tend to tend to the plants as well as I could when the netting is in the way. So the next best thing is of course trying to encourage the little birds to come along and eat the caterpillars for me. This is my preferred way, however it doesn't seem to be working too well this year. What we probably should do is try and pot up some more bird feeders and bird houses here on the allotment just to try and encourage those birds in. Back at home we got plenty of that, but here on the allotment not so much. So that might be something we need to think about moving forward. In the now, what I do is now I go along to every single plant and I check every single leaf. And when I say check every single leaf, I look at the top and I look underneath as well. And I basically pick off all those caterpillars and pot them into a bucket, which I then take that bucket home to feed to my chickens. This is a really good way, I find, of making sure that nothing gets wasted. I really don't like using pesticides, really don't like killing anything unnecessarily. So feeding it to my chickens just seems to make a lot of sense for me. Now, another thing that we have to do as we move forward is make sure we inspect our plants more regularly. It's far easier to remove these caterpillars when they're young or destroy the eggs before they hatch, which is a much easier way of dealing with it. And that's, again, something we're going to be doing. Every time we're on the allotment, we're going to be checking on our brassicas to make sure there are no caterpillars and no eggs. I have actually moved on from my broccoli, checking my cabbages and everything else, and we do have signs of eggs on the cabbages as well. So I've destroyed those to prevent it becoming a problem. But that is something, as we move forward, we've got to keep doing. It's a little bit annoying because these caterpillars can really wreak havoc on all our plants. Now, another thing that I've done this week is something that I've spoken about wanting to do for the last couple of weeks, and that is planting out my leeks. Now, I've got leeks that I've grown from seed back in January, and they've been waiting to go into my allotment. Well, I've last couple of weeks been saying I want them to go in. It's very late for me to get my leeks in, so it was a case that I've had to do it this week. So what I did is I simply dibbed a hole in the ground and pot into that hole a single leek plant and then just watered them all in well. For the first week, what we've got to make sure we do is water that bed every single day to get those leek plants established. Eventually they'll establish and then they will grow on. Now, the reason that these have taken a while to get into the ground is that I wanted my leeks to go in the ground after my garlic. So although they've been growing on quite nicely in pots, they have gone into the ground after my garlic has came out. So it's kind of working quite well for that. We just got to make sure that we get these leek plants established. There is a lot of them. I've got a few more at home as well that are going to go into some of the other beds, and leeks are going to take up those beds right through the winter. So they're an important staple in my opinion because they do last for a very, very long time, and I think they are a fantastic vegetable to grow as well. But we've got them in. That's the main thing. We've got them in the ground. They seem to be quite happy, I have to say. So it is looking positive. Now, added to that, other things that we have been doing have, of course, been harvesting courgettes, tomatoes, all the great goodies that you can imagine we're harvesting at this time of year. Thornless blackberries are doing fantastic. Red currants, black currants, white currants, all the soft fruits that you can imagine. It is just becoming a really, really good time of year for harvesting lots of crops. Last week, as you know, I harvested my first earlies, and I've gone over that bed just once more just to make sure there was no potatoes left in that bed. There wasn't, so I've now moved on and harvested my first load of second early potatoes. Got to say, the second early potatoes, much better than the first, so we're quite happy with that. That gives us plenty of scope to move forward with. So everything's moving in the right direction. Good harvest. The allotment is looking great. Courgettes. So many courgettes at the moment, but we're very, very happy with what we're getting from the allotment. Of course, we do need some rain. I'm going to say this. I know we've spoken a lot about rain. We really do need some rain because the allotment is just so dry, and it's not going to get any better. We can try and keep watering with watering cans. We need rain. We really do need rain. Well, that's what's been going on here on the allotment this week. I'm going to head back to the kitchen garden where I'll meet you in just a moment. In the meantime, let's find out what's been going on in the supporters club this week. Well, I hope you're enjoying the Veg Grower Podcast so far. If you are, then please leave a rate and review. It really helps others find the show and supports the work that we do. But if you'd really like to take things a step further, then please consider becoming a member of the Veg Grower Podcast Supporters Club. For just £5 a month, you get a behind-the-scenes podcast that give you a bit of an idea what's going on here at Veg Grower Podcast HQ. Along with that, once a month you will receive our monthly seed pack, and that seed pack contains a collection of seeds that I've carefully chosen to be sown in that very month, which means they're not hanging around for ages waiting to be sown. You also get a copy of our mini newspaper, which is full of sowing tips, tasks and notes, and it gives you instructions on how to sow the seeds that I have just mentioned. For me, it's part of a tool. It's something that I use myself to keep track of what's going on in my allotment and my kitchen garden. Now, as an example, this week in the Supporters Club, we have sown some beetroot, a variety called Boltardi, and spinach, a variety called Virafly. These are two really reliable staples for growing in the summer and autumn. So they are something that I really, really value and perfect for sowing at this time of year. Now, if that sounds like something you would be interested in, then please head to the veggrowerpodcast.co.uk to find out more and hopefully sign up. We would love to have you there. Right, let's head back to the gardening. Well, I'm back home in the kitchen garden, and this week I have been focusing on a few jobs here that have really helped just keeping things productive as we move on throughout the year. Now, first of all, it was trimming back some of my woody herbs. These are things like our thyme and rosemary. Now, these herbs, they have a habit of getting very woody if they are just left to grow to their own devices. And once they go woody, you tend to get less growth with less flavour, and the plants just start to look a little bit tired. So just giving them a trim encourages new soft shoots to grow. And these soft shoots are much better for cooking, and they help keep the plants healthy and compact. Now, of course, the prunings never go to waste. Some of the softer bits in particular will go straight into the kitchen, where they will be used straight away, chopped into salads, roast potatoes, all the things that we tend to use fresh herbs for. Some will, of course, be dried for use later in the year. Rosemary really dries brilliantly. Thyme is also perfect for dehydrating or just hanging in bunches. And any thicker, woodier stems are perfect for use as skewers on the barbecue. But I also have another use for some of these prunings, and that is just simply to take some cuttings so I can grow some new plants. Now, rosemary is particularly easy, but rosemary, thyme, sage, what I tend to do is I take a stem, I remove some of the lower leaves, and then I place it in a tub of water until roots start to grow. Once the roots start to grow strongly, we will then just pot them up into pots and get those to grow as new plants, which means we have more stock of herbs for our garden. So our herbs have now been dealt with. Next on the list was putting up some poultry netting just around the chicken coop. Now, I got some poultry netting from Amazon. I already have a Normlet coop and run, which is fantastic. It's secure, it's easy to clean, it gives the chickens plenty of space. But I do like to give them more space when I can. Now, in the past, we used to just let the chickens roam around the garden all day. But we had a fox attack, and we also have since got Roxy, our dog. So we have to be much more careful with doing that. So basically, this poultry netting is acting as a bit of an extension. It's a bit of a compromise. It gives the chickens a bit more space to explore, scratch, forage, all the stuff that I want them to do, but they'll still be contained and safe, more importantly. Now, first they seemed a bit unsure when I first let them out. Chickens don't always like the change, but they did soon get used to it. I only let them out into the extension when I'm working in the garden, just so I can keep an eye on things. We're not going to let them out during the day, like I said, because of the risk that there is foxes around. Now, of course, the hope is that they're going to help me out by just eating the grass, the weeds in that area, and just keep it that little bit more tidier for me. Chickens are really brilliant workers when you give them a chance. That's why I love having them in the garden. They're great for cleaning pests. They're great for clearing weeds. They're just a fantastic pet to have in the garden. Now, finally, I have settled into a good routine with the hot bin. We got the hot bin last year, and it was sent to me as part of a trial. I used it a lot last year and I was very happy with the results, but now I've had it for more than a year, I have learned just how to get into a routine of using it really, really efficiently. Now, this has taken a bit of trial and error just to get right, but it's now exactly working how it should be. Once a week, I basically empty a small amount of compost from the bottom, just enough to use as a bit of a mulch around some of our plants. The compost comes out really well broken down, warm, crumbly, full of moisture, full of life. It is just perfect putting around some of our hungrier crops in particular. Now, at the same time, I then add fresh material to the top of this hot bin. This just gives us a good balance of greens and browns, of course, kitchen scraps, spent plants, chicken bedding, shredded compost, herb prunings, that sort of thing, all the things I've been talking about. The hot bin, I found it really does thrive on balance, that mix between the green and brown. So because it stays insulated and aerated, it heats up really quickly and breaks down the material far faster than the traditional compost heap. It is absolutely amazing, and they say you can produce compost in 30 days. That's certainly what I'm finding at the moment. It really, really is great. I spoke about it a lot last year and I haven't really mentioned it much this year, but we're still using it. We've got into the routine and my garden is just filling up so nicely with all the compost that it is producing. It was a little bit fiddly at first, but once you get into the rhythm, it just becomes second nature. And that steady supply of compost is incredibly satisfying. So overall, I'm really happy with the kitchen garden, as always. I say this every week, but I'm really happy with it. It's all really came together nicely. We're getting a really productive year, and these just few small jobs, just done consistently, are really making a big difference. So it's all going the right way. Well, it is now time to head on into the podding shed, where I'm going to be talking about storage of our soft fruits. But in the meantime, let's find out what's going on in the kitchen this week.
Chopping all the veggies, sizzle in the air. Chef's got with the magic, smells are everywhere. Water starts to boil, onions hit the pan. Recipe of the week, let the feast begin. Cooking with Chef Scott, flavors come alive. Tune in every week for a tasty bite.
So this week's recipe is a stir-fried summer beans. This is a really simple, quick, perfect for this time of year. And as you know, I do like to keep my dishes quite simple. This needs nothing more than fresh beans, a hot pan, a little oil, garlic, maybe a splash of soy sauce or sesame oil. And you have this delicious side dish in just a few minutes. This is just such a great way to use up the first of those tender beans of the season. Now, to make this, I used runner beans because they are just coming into season. I took about 300 to 400 grams of runner beans and I just sliced the runner beans diagonally into thin strips. You could use French beans, but leave them whole if they are young and tender. In a frying pan, I added some oil, heat it and get the oil nice and hot, then stir in the garlic and ginger. Just cook for 30 seconds until nice and fragrant. Just don't let them burn. Then we add in the beans, toss them well and cook for 4 to 6 minutes until they are nice and bright and green, but still have a nice bit of crunch. At this point, I then poured in some soy sauce, some honey and some sesame oil, gave it a good stir to make sure everything was coated in all this flavour, cooked for another minute, and then that was it. I served it with a sprinkling of sesame seeds over the top. Now, the great thing is you could also add some other serving suggestions. You could use chili flakes or spring onions, and this goes perfect alongside grilled meats or veg. Lovely mixed into noodles for a quick summer dinner and great with rice or fried egg for a simple allotment to table meal. Go give it a try. Let me know how you get on. The recipe is, of course, on the veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Well, over the last few weeks, something that we have been harvesting a lot of is our soft fruit. And I love our soft fruit. I do think it tastes best as soon as we harvest it. The trouble with soft fruit, however, is that it doesn't last for long, even inside a fridge. I find within 2 to 3 days that the soft fruit has turned to mush or just lost its flavour. It certainly tastes best if we eat it as soon as we harvest it. However, with so much soft fruit coming in, I do find that we do need to think about how we store our soft fruit. And this is something that I feel I want to talk about tonight, storing our soft fruit. And I think in the next coming weeks, we're going to be talking about how we store a variety of vegetables and fruit. But for tonight, soft fruit is what I'm concentrating on. Now, when I say soft fruit, I mean things like strawberries, currants, gooseberries, raspberries, cherries, those sort of fruits that are just full of flavour and that we look forward to every single summer. Now, interestingly, I have noticed that certain soft fruits are out much earlier this year. So if we want to store some of these blackberries, I've even seen apples already at this time of year as well, actually, but they're not a soft fruit. But if we want to store some of these flavourful fruits so that we can use them throughout the winter, then we need to think about how we store these fruits. And for me, the fastest, quickest way to store our fruits is to freeze them. Now, freezing can be done pretty quickly. I find if you are short on time, then just bunging them in a freezer is fine. But they do tend to clump together if you do it that way. What I like to do is give all my fruit a good wash, give it a bit of a shake to dry off some of that water, and then place it on trays, each fruit individually so they're not touching each other, and let that freeze for a couple of hours. And after 2 hours, take all those fruits and pot them into a takeaway container or a bag and put that back in the freezer. The advantage with this is that I find that the fruit doesn't all stick together when it's frozen. So it's nice and easy to really use it later on down the line if you're going to be making smoothies or crumbles or anything that you might want soft fruit for. Even decoration on your Christmas dinner plate, some nice red currants or something. This is, for me, the easiest, fastest and most reliable way to store our soft fruit. But we can be a little bit more imaginative than this, I think. There are a lot more things that we can do with our soft fruit. And the obvious one is, of course, jams and jellies. Now, jams and jellies are great. We go through quite a few jams and jellies here. And jams are so simple. Raspberries are by far the easiest fruit to turn into jam. Just take 500 grams of raspberries, 500 grams of sugar, cook them together until you get a nice rolling boil, hold it there for about 5 minutes, and then bottle it. It really is that easy. Some fruit might need extra pectin, but it really is that easy. Jellies take a little bit longer because you do have to strain them and you have to boil them down and things like that, but there's plenty of recipes telling you how to do that. And again, I absolutely love using these in a wide range of dishes. Now, bottling is a more traditional method to store our soft fruit, and it's also a method that I think that the modern way of living, we've kind of forgotten how to bottle. In the past, before we had refrigeration, it was pretty common. But these days, refrigeration takes over for it. But it is a reliable way, and it is certainly something that we should look at doing if we want to store lots of soft fruit. Also means it doesn't take up freezer space, so you can have a completely packed freezer, but still have room to store more fruit. Added to that, bottled fruit can last for months and sometimes even a year. What I would say with bottling, however, is there are plenty of instructions again online on how to do it. But practice, practice, practice. And if you can go on a course, I'd highly recommend that. Now, one of the other things that I'm really into this year is turning our soft fruit into wine. Now, this is things like raspberry wine, blackberry wine, gooseberry wine. I've got rhubarb wine. I've got elderflower wine. I'm not really a wine drinker, but I am into preserving my food. So we're making some of these country wines. Again, they're pretty easy to do. It does involve a little bit of boiling water and putting it over the fruit and allowing it to steep and what have you. But again, you get a bottle of wine at the end of it. And if you do like your wine, if you do like your alcohol, it is a really good way of enjoying the fruits of your labour. Now, added to that, one of the things that we use a lot of is our dehydrator. And I love using our dehydrator for turning soft fruits into fruit leather. These are like chewy snacks that you might give to your children, and these are absolutely delicious and a great way, again, of making our fruits last that little bit longer, but storing some of that space at the same time. Now, the point is that growing soft fruit is incredibly rewarding, but it's also one of those fastest crops to spoil. And if we learn how to store it properly, we can make it last longer, which means less waste, more variety in the kitchen, and enjoying those summer flavours all year round and relying on the supermarket a little bit less. Now, of course, we will revisit this topic throughout the summer. As more fruit comes in, I'm going to share with you how I'm storing that fruit. And I'm going to be cooking all these methods myself and share that with you as well. So there's something to really look forward to over the coming weeks. Now, this week, we have suddenly had a few comments come through on iTunes. They seem to arrive all at once. And first of all, Max said they recently discovered the podcast, and as somebody who knows virtually nothing about growing vegetables, they have found it inspiring, approachable and informative. They're currently binge listening while at work. So thank you very much for that, Mag. I really appreciate that. We have a R. Davies who says they love hearing the updates each week, and it gives them lots of ideas to try on their own allotment. So once again, R. Davies, thank you so much for that comment. And finally, we have a listener whose handle looks like a car registration, so I'm not going to read it out. It says they've just come across the Veg Grower Podcast and they absolutely love it. They're a second-year gardener and allotment holder, and they learn something new every time they listen. So thank you so much for that comment as well. And I'd like to thank everybody that has left a comment. Your comments mean the world to me. It really does give me a bit of a boost to know that I am doing the right thing. Now, if you'd like to leave a review, then please do. Just head to your favourite podcast provider, find the Veg Grower Podcast and leave a review. It takes you seconds, but it means a lot to us. It helps us get found by more people who might also be interested in learning more about how to grow their own food. Of course, you can also get in touch with me via email. My email address is richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk. You can head to our blog site where you can leave a comment on the bottom of a blog post or leave a voicemail. The blog site, of course, theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk. And of course, you can please consider joining the Supporters Club if you want to help keep this podcast running. And finally, of course, don't forget you can follow me on social media. I think that just about takes care of everything this week. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, please take care.